everybody. So I just got back from seeing the film Suffragette, and I'm so disappointed and frustrated by this film. This was a film that was one of my most anticipated of the fall. I have a definite love for the suffragette movement and for early feminist causes. I took political economy of women, other women's studies classes in college. It's a topic that's really near and dear to my heart. But I felt like this film, I remember when Les Mis came out, a lot of critics were saying that they hated the choices that Tom Hooper made in making that film. I feel the same way about Suffragette. The cast is great and they do such a good job, and it's such a worthy topic to talk about. The choices that the director Sarah Gavron made, I hated. I did not like watching this movie. I'm just being honest. And a lot of people are saying, well, it's made by women, it's produced by women, everything. And, that's awesome. And I heard a lot of the same thing about Austenland, which I also really didn't like. But I think that's great to have more women filmmakers and more women producers and things like that. But I'm not going to give them a pass if I didn't like the movie. That doesn't help anybody if I'm not honest about how I felt about the film. So let me get into some of it. Well, I'll just say some of the strengths first. Carey Mulligan plays this woman named Maud Watts. She's kind of reluctant to join the suffragette movement. Works in a laundry, and there's a long process that sort of finally gets her involved into the movement. She works with another woman who's much more vocal about the movement, and that woman has a daughter that's also kind of involved in the story. And then her husband seems pretty supportive at first, played by Ben Winshaw, but then he completely wimps out, and he doesn't want to do anything that's hard or difficult. And then there are other characters. Helena Bonham Carter plays a doctor, I guess, so she's educated, and she's more of the radical side of the suffragette movement. And her husband is actually really supportive, which was kind of interesting that they showed all these different versions of support. Meryl Streep, you see on the poster, she's so underused in this film. Like, I honestly think this is sort of like a Brad Pitt 12 Years a Slave kind of a situation where like they needed to have Meryl Streep in the movie in order for it to get funding, because she's just complete non-entity. She plays Emmeline Pankhurst, and she gives one speech. She's literally in the movie for under 10 minutes. And I thought that was a real shame, because you have an actress like Meryl Streep who's willing to dedicate and commit to performances. Why not use her more effectively? I didn't understand that choice at all. There's a lot of the sets and the costuming that I liked, and I also liked the fact that they were willing to portray this darker side of the movement, and the fact that they were, in a way, sort of terrorists. They were blowing things up and doing different things like that. Like, that was pretty ballsy of them, I must say, to go that direction. So those are some of the things that I liked. But here's my negatives. Okay. So this film, every shot in this film, the camera is moving. And sometimes it's just like a little bit, you just see the screen just barely kind of jittering, right? Sometimes it's just jittering just a little bit, like someone was holding the camera and they were nervous. And then other times it's all out shaky cam. It looks like the freaking Hunger Games. Like, it drove me crazy. And I mean, even times when, like, I get it in the mob scenes. That could be totally effective, make it feel like you're part of the mob. I get it. But I'm telling you, there's a scene in this movie where Brendan Gleeson is looking at a folder of pictures, and we get the, it's just like, oh my gosh, stop. I was so frustrated. I wanted to walk out of the theater. That's how nauseating it was making me, and frustrating it was making me. It was such a distraction from the story. I think that Paul Greengrass is the only director I've really seen that has been able to do it in a way that made it work, and that was for United 93, which was a very tight and closed-in space. So it's not like you needed the the bigger feel of these mob scenes, or the bigger feel of some of these shots. And that was my other big problem with the film, is not only was using all this shaky and all this jittery cam, but it would do these extreme close-ups that completely didn't make any sense to me at all as far as storytelling. So there'd be like this shot where all you saw is the Carey Mulligan character's eye and nose and a little bit of her mouth. Like the whole screen. And that would happen a lot. Or you just see a person's eyes, or you just see a person's head. And it's like they're having a conversation or they're thinking about something. I want to see their whole body. I want to see the whole thing. And it just, when you combine it with the movie, so. The other problem that I have with this film is they chose to have the Carey Mulligan character be a fictional character. And the problem with that is that you can basically include anything that happened to any suffragette and make it all a part of this one character. You have no sense of accountability that you might have with a true character. I mean, it just felt a little bit like, that felt a little propaganda-ish. I'm sorry, it did. You know, it kind of reminded me of the story by Isaac Bashevis Singer called Gimple the Fool. And it's basically like this story about this man who, like, everything in the world that can happen that's bad happens to this man. And he is just such a simpleton that he doesn't realize that everybody is taking advantage of him and everybody is being horrible to him, and things just keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's how it kind of felt a little bit for me, that like it became a character where it was somewhat predictable what was going to happen next, because there was none of sort of the unpredictability of real life. You know, that a real life person is going to have some, even in the worst of situations, is going to have a certain degree of unpredictability. And so, I don't know, it just became like a story, kind of like Gimple the Fool. And it's frustrating because the suffragette movement deserves a better movie. I really think it does. I hope that this is not the suffragette movie that we get, and we don't get. I would love to see a movie about Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, because that is a great, true story. It blows my mind, the fact that those two women were able to work together. They couldn't be more completely different. They disagreed on almost everything except for the women's movement. They were completely different lifestyles, completely different backgrounds, and so their story is so fascinating. And if you want to read one of the great speeches in American history, read The Solitude of Self by Elizabeth Cady Stanton. It is one of my favorites, and it's like scripture to me. I love it. And so this is just a topic that I love so much, and I was so frustrated by this movie. And I don't know. A lot of people seem to like it a lot better than I did, but I was frustrated by it because I just thought all the shaking and the extreme close-ups were almost unforgivable. I hated that. So if any of you have seen it, put your comments below. Let me know what you thought. And is there a shaky cam movie that you like? Or do you not like the practice as much as I do? Put in the comment section, let me know. And thanks so much. Please subscribe to my channel. I'll talk to you later. Bye.